Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the Hobby Hotline live. Call in, ask your questions, your gripes, your complaints, your nags, and your pet peeves of the hobby. Want to first say good morning to the sports card shop at Moco. What's going on, Rex, Max, Owen, all those guys there? Want to give compliments to Max for being awesome on John Newman's show this week. It was very, very impressive. I actually absolutely loved it. So great job today. Great job. I really did enjoy it. But welcome to the show. As you know, it's just going to be Rich and I. So we're gonna really hope that y'all lift us up. And I did a prayer before. I did a prayer before the show.
That's okay. I came from Taurus Day. It's a very intense portion this week to talk about. So
I hear you.
This is like having a breath of, hey, I'm having fun after the discussion I was just in. So, and by the way, Brad and I both are celebrating this week.
We are. Happy birthday, Uncle Rich.
Yes, yesterday was my birthday. It's my Roger Maris year.
I know.
I'm now Roger Maris. And speaking of, yes, Logan, I did get a haircut last week. Thankfully, a very nice lady that a family friend of my wife and mother-in-law. She's licensed and she charges us a very reasonable rate. And I'm very happy to get a haircut instead of being a long-haired person I was when you all saw me at the Dallas Card Show. But more importantly than that, it's also Mr. Berthoon's 1-year anniversary in the hobby.
Oh,
I think it was this week. It was his 1-year anniversary. You came in at an interesting time, and it's evolved amazingly in the past year. So I just want to get an idea of what you have seen in the past year that has really interested you in terms of what you've seen in that very short time with, instead of the jaded type of view I have of the hobby, what has changed in the past year for you?
Yeah, so I first, good morning, Mr. Chris Harris. Good morning, Logan. Good morning, Rex. Good morning, Bo. Good morning, Dan. Good morning. Thank you, Bo. Thank you for the anniversary. I would say it's very similar to good morning, Matt. A very Fast and Furious movie where everything's coming at you at not a million, a billion miles per hour, and trying to catch up first is insane. And then thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. And just the news coming at you is so fast. And then 2019 started, trying to get a footing. Just blasters and everything was available. You could go to Target, Walmart, wherever, and just get whatever on the shelf, from football, basketball, baseball, hockey, anything you wanted to pick up. When I came back in this time last year, 2019, and then COVID hit, and just from going from everything to nothing. And then just dead. I mean, it was dead. And then everybody started coming back into the hobby. And then you had the ramp up, and you had it. I mean, you could completely put this as an action movie, where you've got the beginning of slow, you've got a protagonist event, then you've got the action series, which was 2020. And now we're on for lack of a better phrase, a finale where is it going to ramp back up into the second movie, or are we going to end this trilogy in a nice, happy kumbaya moment? I mean, you could reckon it with that. And the one thing that I've been able to do in positive and negative is set up Google alerts and set up the ability to get information just as much as I can possible. But I can tell you, even with the Google alerts, Rich, the hobby comes up with topics and with with subjects that that my alerts don't catch, and that I don't read. Like I got up this morning at 7 a.m., had my coffee. Actually, I said my prayer, ate my breakfast, read my coffee, and then immediately started getting just in. I took yesterday off because I felt like crud because of the dental surgery. It took me until now, like 1 minute before the show, to catch up on just 24 hours of missing. And that was 2.5 hours of information just feverishly reading and coming out. So someone coming back into the hobby from 10, 15 years ago, just now getting into it, I feel for them, man. I get a lot of guys, a lot of my friends that are coming asking me how do you jump back in? How do you do this? And I say, baby step toe. Take a toe. Find a product that you like. Find a cheap product. Hey, Brody, what's up, Brody? It is awesome to see you, Brody. But take a baby toe and just step in. Don't try to go full, because you'll get overwhelmed. You'll get completely overwhelmed very, very quickly. So that's my advice. Find something that you like, baseball, football, because I try to go all in and jump all the way in and go baseball, football. You and I have had this conversation over lunch, so we can.
Yes.
I tried to go baseball, football, basketball, hockey, UFC, soccer, everywhere, and then I went, oh. Why did I do that? I just oy veyed. And I said, no, I'm going to concentrate on what I like: football, baseball, stuff. Go back to my core, go back into the vintage and look at the vintage, go back into my history, Aikman, Irvin, Emmett, Novacek, Stepnoski, go back into the era that I truly love: 90s football, 80s football, and then 70s baseball, 90s baseball, and really concentrate on those to gain my expertise, and then fill in the gaps. And once I start filling in the gaps, that's when you and I will have more conversations. And I'll shut up now. 5 minutes.
Well, I think you said something very trenchant. And I think you said something very important for everybody. Most of our viewers, most of our listeners are somewhat familiar with the hobby. We get some newcomers, but you said something very important, which is, and it's hard to study and learn, but if you're going to jump in, study and learn before you do anything. And I set up at Kyle's show, at the Dallas Card Show, and I'll ask people what they want. What are you looking for? And you can almost always tell the difference between a collector or a dealer or somebody who plays by how they respond. I mean, when you did my table for me in March, and I was still doing it, is, if you would hear something like, I want a Johnny Unitas rookie, I want a Jim Brown rookie, I want a such and such rookie, do you have any soccer cards? Those people are looking for the newest shiny object, even though some of those cards are older than us. Yeah. But they're still looking for the newest shiny object, where others may say, hey, I'm working on my 55 set, or I'm working on my 69 set, or I'm doing that, or I just like coming to see what interests me. That they're not doing investing. They've actually been a collector. And there are some people, and I'm perfectly fine with somebody who cashed in the last year and took advantage of the hot market to buy stuff they wanted for their own collection. Right. That's a fairly normal thing to do. In fact, that's, if you're really into, being an economist, that's the smartest thing to do: sell into an up market. Yeah. And now, I know a couple of weeks ago when we had Dr. Beckett on, we talked about a market correction, and he did not want the word crash, and I agree with him. Crash, yeah. We're not in a crash situation. No. Correction, yes. Crash, no. But you can make a lot of money in a correction too. I want to point that out. A correction, yes, dull and boring is a good way to go if you're building a collection. And Royals, Royals 417. It was good to meet you last November at the show when you and I were behind my table. We put him right on the air last November, so he's welcome to call in, join us again. But there's nothing wrong with taking your profit, and then if you held your profit, and if the market is truly correcting, buy some of the stuff as it's dipping.
Yeah.
That's a very wise thing to do. If you think it's just a dip and not a permanent decrease, then that's a wise time to buy stuff.
Yeah. And it's, Brian Gray is a great, big, huge proponent of this: buy low, sell high, or just buy low and collect. And I don't think, let me throw this out there to you this is my theory. I don't think we're really in a correction. I think we're in a value hunt where people are actually looking for better value of their dollar other than just buying up everything. Because
I also think that some of the retail issues and like Target not selling the card is also in a strange way helping to fuel this correction, because some of the easy profits are leaving.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that group all of a sudden is not funneling money and products back into the hobby. And since they're not funneling money and hobby into the hobby, all of a sudden they, that stream has dried up.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a little less energy and there's a little less new product, and it is an issue. There's no shortage of cards. I mean, you went to the Dallas Card Show in May. Tell me, is there a shortage of cards available for sale at the show?
No, there's not. There's
no shortage of cards. It may not be what you specifically want, but I will tell you that, after we left Dr. Beckett's content creation dinner that night, did you wander into the hallway and see how all that activity and all that energy on trade night?
I did.
I mean, do you know that the last people finally left at 3:30 that morning?
I did. I mean, there is, and this is an interesting, Brian's comment. No, I don't agree. People are still buying cards from Target online. I don't understand the I don't agree part, but I did want to highlight people are still buying cards from Target online. So yes, people are still buying cards from Target online. But I think Brian, what we're talking about is the access to cards, and Target's restrictions or fighting against the bots have become a little bit more successful to where you can get the product a little easier, I think. And call in. I put in the deal. I'd really like to discuss this a little further with you, because I'm not 100% about the I don't agree, but I do agree people are still buying from Target, Walmart, from all the other different avenues to be able to. And then you got Logan saying,
by the way, I went to Target online yesterday.
Oh, nice. Did you get anything?
There was not one thing available. There was not one sports card available. They had a ton last week when Bowman Mega hit. They had a whole bunch. We actually looked for fun. We had a little hobby lunch yesterday, and
nice.
Before hobby lunch,
what was my invite?
You're welcome. Oh, I'll tell you. Every 2 weeks we have a hobby lunch. Usually, I will send you an invite.
Please do.
You got it. Going forward, you're welcome to come. It's usually at a local place to us around here, but you're welcome to come. I will send you going forward.
Please.
So I apologize for that. I never thought about that. It's a more the merrier.
Wow.
So you're welcome.
I see how you are. Let's find you next time.
Yes. You're welcome to come. I'll make sure I'll send you the notes of where we're going.
Thank you.
But we looked online, and you could buy stuff from like Tops directly. You could buy stuff from Target, Excel Marketing, but there was nothing directly from Target that you could buy online yesterday, because we did look about lunchtime, and there was not one thing available to buy. So yes, last week there was a ton of megas, and I expect those to be delivered by now, or you can pick them up in the stores or whatever. But yesterday, not one Target box. So that's not. And I think the person who made the comment about the casual Target shoppers, and I think 1 Million Cubs is right. There are people that won't go to buy cards online, because they need the instant way to, hey, I've got the cards in hand. Now let me go flip them.
Yeah.
If you have to wait, all of a sudden you can't flip them either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then you've got, there's a group of us. There's about 3 or 4 of us, maybe about five or six, that watch out for each other whenever the Bowman Megas or whenever some stuff comes online. So there is, and if you want to, if you want to be part of that group, holler at me on Twitter, and I'll include you so that you can get notices when we get notices, so that you at least have a fighting chance against the bots. And that's the best part about it, is the fighting chance against the bots. So,
by the way, I see Jeremy has joined us. So welcome, Jeremy, one of our fellow guests. Last week, he celebrated episode 100. He had a great get in having Nat Turner on. And then he had a follow-up with, I believe, Chris McGill is the guy's name, for another 2 hours, basically dissecting what Nat had said. And I think it was a fascinating time where, Nat Turner is now the head of Collectors Universe, but he's also a major baseball card collector. So was David Hall, a major baseball card collector. The only difference is Nat's cards are already graded. It's not like, maybe he has to buy some more grading stuff, but, maybe some of his cards he wants to get graded, but he's already got his cards graded, so he doesn't even have to use his own company to grade any cards. But I think it's interesting to have, again, a real collector running anything associated with cards, a card type company.
Yep. And interestingly enough, not only is Nat in on Collectors Universe, he's actually on Loop. The Loop got a 12 million Series A funding, and he's part of that group. And if you don't know what Loop is, they're a online breaker forum where breakers are using it to just break cards. It's an online platform that's competing against YouTube. And was reading an article, so I don't participate in Loop, but I did read a couple of articles, enough to know the quote from Eric Doty, the owner of the company. Our goal from the outset was for Loop to be on every collector's phone. Every day we're moving closer to that, and they're going to use it for a physical card shop, office space, aggressively scale up the team to assist with new product features, partnerships, and user acquisitions. They're located in Miami. So if you are looking for a job in the hobby in Miami, Loop is going to be looking for people to join in. So that is Nat, and that is DJ Ski. And as I'm sitting here commenting about this, if I remember right, on Let Me Get That Potograph, Eric was actually on Let Me Get That Potograph as far as an interview. So you can go learn more there. But what do you think of this competing platform?
I think, like anything else, there's going to be a growing hobby-only subject online. I got an email yesterday from somebody who, and I want to try to phrase this correctly, the person and Dr. Jim interviewed him for one of his podcasts, the person when Dr. Jim sold Beckett, who replaced him as CEO, and they still have a good relationship. And he set up somebody's found him on LinkedIn, and he goes, go talk to Rich. And okay, and I'm happy to talk to anybody. And the person is setting up a thing where you can get and I'll look it up, so please forgive me, I'm going to go away from this for a second. And if anybody wants, I can forward them on email, they can DM me or whatever. But basically, they are explaining that they can do like centering and like looking at the surface online through a phone.
Yes.
And I said, whether it's you or somebody else, there's definitely going to be a room for a pre-grade by doing a phone thing.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever does it best will win that game. And that's true of anything going on in we'll call it I don't want to say social media, but in the more electronic way of looking at stuff too. That's going to be a growing field. Not everybody like we in Dallas here. I have 4 card stores within 30 minutes of where I live. They're all good in their own ways. I'm lucky. I don't need to go out and look at, go online, go buy stuff online. I can buy stuff in person. We have Kyle's shows, the Dallas card shows. They're wonderful. In fact, I'm moving back to the room I'm normally in for the next show, which will help my joints at this point, because that concrete floor destroyed my legs for a few days after the show.
Yes, they did.
But there's going to be tons of cards for me in that room. I'm lucky. I have places to go to buy cards in person and see them. We have Herman online. It's 2 hours, 3 hours for him to do anything. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people out there, and I know the pandemic's easing in much of the country, and we're glad to see that. But there's still, even with that, there are pockets of the country where it's 2 hours, 3 hours to go anywhere to buy something in person. And so the phones and the electronic methods are going to continue to be important. And so Loop, if it's going to be an online thing to replace YouTube, it's going to be much more centralized. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be more hobby-centric. And that's not the worst thing in the world, to have more hobby-specific things, as long as we find ways to bring new people into them, and it's not just the same people in it every week.
Right.
So everybody tell your friends about that. And, we love to hear from everybody. Yep. But everybody's also got their core audience. So you'll have your core audience, but you want to gain from your core audience as well.
Yeah, my only concern is that it's phone, and phones can be very small, and seeing that. So,
I agree. But sometimes you can do stuff electronically too on a desktop. If you can transfer your phone to a desktop, you can still look that way. So I agree. It's hard on a phone. It's hard for me to see things on a phone. God knows, I just got a smartphone, and God knows how many wrong numbers I've made already, and how many people I've called or texted that I had no business, because I can't figure out what the heck I'm doing half the time. And I haven't even tried to get a bunch of apps yet. I don't even want apps, because I guarantee you, I went to the Rough Riders game, and one of my good friends got me tickets last night, and they were wonderful seats actually, and we happened to be where we were socially distant from anybody else sitting really near us, but it was outdoors. I felt perfectly comfortable. It was a wonderful night to be. It was a good game. I saw Bobby Witt Jr. play.
Nice. Oh, yes. Man. I would have loved to have seen that. That's cool.
Yes, I got to see Bobby Witt Jr. play. In fact,
was Daddy there?
My friend has a player who stayed with him. Mm-hmm. And so we got to will call, and finally, when I said, yes, my friend so-and-so, and he's got and the player and his wife, it's a player ticket. 3 seconds later, I had my tickets to the game. Because she was trying to figure out where my tickets were. It's like, oh, never mind, you're done. But the whole point was that it was nice to be outside, but there's stuff by seeing it in person you caught by not seeing it on TV. The ball sounded different off, and I know I'm going on a different tangent.
Oh, no, you're fine.
The ball sounded different off Bobby Witt Jr.'s bat than it did off anybody else, even though some people hit home runs. The ball just sounded better. It's like there's something different about him. He's 20 years old. Frankly, in my opinion, the way he hits, he could be in the majors right now. And the Royals certainly could use him.
Yep, the Royals. Matt, the Royals can use any help they can get. No, I'm just kidding. So there's a bunch of comments that Rex made that I'm going to kind of highlight here, just because I think they're really cool. Single prices in wax have moved downward, but we're not seeing any evidence of a slowdown here. And this is Max from the shop at Moco. And then one key metric is daily average versus last month. And the fact that he's actually sharing this is why I'm highlighting this. First 5 months, I mean, look at that growth. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. And then look at this. June is 3% over May. So his point was eBay sales don't tell the whole story. And this is the key. eBay sales don't tell the whole story. The card market show markets don't report. And then Topps first were 55. Oh, this is right. It was $66.6 million CAGR. And for those of you who know business, CAGR is a 3-year span. Kager, which is huge, is absolutely huge. And in those, we won't see a clear picture until 2022. 2020 was pre-pandemic. Hobby was significantly down compared to the later quarters. So I'm highlighting this because this is such a great conversation, guys.
I'm glad that 3B has a store opening near him. He won't have to drive 3 hours anymore.
Yeah, I'm glad too.
I'm glad for Herman.
Matt says Bobby is not ready.
He is ready. I'm telling you, he's ready. I mean, and granted, I'm not a major league scout. He's ready. I'm telling you that sometimes a person's. He was ready when we saw him in spring training. He's ready now.
Well, Brian makes a great comment here. Dealers say that Dallas show not many were buying it all, much more trading.
I'm also going to point out that for a lot of people, and I know Texas, we got an extension to some extent, but a lot of people, the tax day was May 17th. Yep. I know that some people in Texas got to June, but if you paid your taxes on May 17th and the show's a week later, you may not, and you paid them honestly and you owe the government money, you may not have any money that weekend.
Right.
Right. I will tell you, back in the days when I ran shows, April was one of the worst months to run shows because people paid their taxes in April. So anytime you have people paying their taxes, you've got some issues.
All right, I just wrote down, Bo, make a duly note. No show in April.
No, you can run a show, but just understand that you may. In fact, I'd like Bo to call in because I'd like to talk to him about his shows.
Well, I
think that's a cool subject. But yes, April was one of my worst months. But the worst month for me running shows, and I was monthly, was December. And interestingly, I always went to free admission in December.
Interesting.
And it's because there's so much competition in December that it's really hard. But I mean, I would do a holiday free admission show. I wouldn't charge you. I'd have a couple door prizes. And it was always my lowest admission show of the year, even with free admission.
Well, we were talking about shows. Let's talk about the East Coast. And I'm a Texas guy, so I don't know all I can say is that the East Coast National's back August 20th and 22nd. And then you'd mentioned earlier, make your comment again about.
Okay, well, first I'm going to say that also this weekend, the Philly show is back.
That's right.
Joe Relic is running. In fact, I know at least Drew from Hobby Hotline. I don't know if anybody else is there as well. They're at the Philly show, the Joe Relic, and it's running at full steam ahead. I don't think there's any restrictions at the Philly show this weekend.
No, there's not.
And that's great to see. And the East Coast National has traditionally been at the White Plains Convention Center as long as it's been around, which is 40 years. And I've gone to them in the 80s. It has always been at the White Plains Convention Center. I think by virtue of what they had to do with the White Plains Convention Center, they had to move it to Hofstra for this show. Hopefully they can get back to the White Plains Convention Center, which is actually a wonderful central location. And what's interesting with the White Plains location, I'm not sure about Hofstra, is you can actually take the train from the city and it basically drops you off at the White Plains Convention Center. I remember back in the day, Dr. Beckett, when he was doing what they called the House of Collectibles books, and he would meet with Random House in New York City, he would, if there was a White Plains show, he would schedule his trips to New York on a weekend where Gloria Rothstein would run her shows at the White Plains Convention Center, so he could stay in the city, and then take the train up to White Plains so he could do his in-person hobby stuff, especially when he was doing the show, when he was doing the magazine basically by himself. It was important for him to travel and see what was going on. And, as quiet, as unassuming as he is, he got a lot of information that way. Hey, Bob.
Hey, the spinning wheel of death.
Hey, congratulations, by the way, on getting past the 500,000.
Thank you. Yeah. I should be up over 600,000 next week. I'm picking up about 60,000 on next Friday. So that'll be
awesome.
Yeah, around 6.
All Cubs or just cards?
All Cubs cards.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. So
let's talk about your shows, because Excuse me, I've got to see who this is.
There's an interesting. I have my own self interest that Mrs. Texas Card Dude doesn't know about. So there, and we've had a conversation offline about this. So what's up, Rich? What's up, Rich Frank? Want to say hello? Want to say hello? But let's talk about your shows and that in building that and that, because I mean that everything that I hear is nothing but positive and glowing reviews. So they're all lying about you. Yep.
Well, it's been it was. I've never run a card show before. Fortunately, I have experience on marketing, and I have experience setting up as a vendor at various card shows. So I just kind of took some ideas from card shows as a buyer, what I would want, and kind of instituted those into our show. My co-promoter Johnny he handles a lot of the. He handled finding the hotel that we have it at, the Sheraton in Madison, and doing all the back scenes work, back behind the scenes work on some of that stuff. So basically, I think that we just try to make it. We don't want to make it a niche bargain box show. We don't want to make it a niche high-end slab show. We don't want to make it a niche retail and supplies. We want to have a little bit of everything. And fortunately, we've just been lucky the first two shows to kind of have a nice balance of bargain boxes, high-end graded stuff, vintage, some memorabilia, some retail, some supplies. So we've just kind of been fortunate on the vendors that have set up over the last two shows to kind of have a little bit of everything for everybody. And Joe just commented, Joe's gonna be a vendor for the first time at our June show, which is on June 26th. So it's awesome to see some of the first time vendors. We've had a lot of comments from people that are like, I haven't set up at a show in 20 years, 25 years. And so seeing them back and doing the card show is a lot of fun. We had a vintage vendor who I don't think he made a sale in April at our first show. And I asked him at the end of the show, I said, sorry, and he goes, nope. He goes, I just didn't bring what people wanted. He goes, but I had a lot of fun. I used to do shows nationally 30 years ago, and I just got back into it. I'll be back. And he missed our May show. He had other obligations. I actually saw him in Wisconsin Dells at that big show a few weeks ago. And he's like, yeah, I had a lot of fun. I'm coming back for the June show. So that's great to see. If you don't make money, if you don't even make your money back on a table, but you still had fun and want to come back to the next show, that tells me that we're doing the right things.
Well, Bo, it's an interesting thing you say about vintage, because I have a mix of vintage and new. Mm-hmm. There was a person, he ran about shows for about 6 months. I only ended up doing 3 of them. They were technically in Fort Worth, but and it's not like when Kyle did Fort Worth, which is really by the airport because of a strange way of how they set that up. It's really more towards Fort Worth, but it's not like downtown Fort Worth. It was a lot different to get there. And the first time he had gotten help, so he drew like 83 people. And I did $23 at the show with whatever I normally bring. The next 2 shows, he drew maybe 20, 25 people. And I did about a couple $100 at each show, which was worth going out for. And it was interesting because then he had the more focus collectors who like going through my stuff. Mm-hmm. Instead of the more slash and dash collectors. And every show has to have you have to keep bringing new people in. But I thought your vintage guy brought up an interesting point. It may not be what people are looking for. He may not know how to present it, or he may not know it. So there are ways you learn as you go about what to do. Every vendor has their ways of doing things.
Absolutely, yeah. He had a lot of memorabilia, and what I've taken away from some of the memorabilia that I've taken to shows that I just kind of acquire in collections, bulk buys that I get, is people really don't want to buy trinkets and memorabilia and there's a certain sector that will, but generally that stuff just doesn't sell well at card shows, at least in my experience and from what I've seen here over the last few weeks. I've been to more card shows in the last 6 weeks than I probably have been in the last 10 to 15 years. I used to set up a lot probably 15 years ago, and then I really didn't do many shows until, I think I set a table up last February at a show that's here in Madison, and that's like the only show I've set up at in 10 years before this past April.
Right, and I love your quarter box thing. I think that quarter box thing is like a lot of fun to do, and then people will start looking at your quarter box for things to do, like that. And I think that's your niche now, is to be the quarter box guy.
Absolutely.
And as long as you keep adding to it, you will continue to have new people going through it. I actually have quarter boxes. I usually don't bring them to the shows unless there's a certain reason to do it. Like when I was doing the Adat Havarim shows, I was pulled in so many different directions. I then learned, I actually made certain requirements, and I made quarter boxes.
And it's fun putting hidden gems in,
I had a simple rule of that. Anything that booked at less than $5 could go in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was inserts of better players. It was Hall of Famers. And it was, I think, 3 different types of cards, and that was it. I was very focused as to what went in there. And now that it's a little easier, I'm happy to say I should be able to get back in, but every card is actually individually sleeved.
Yeah, yep.
Because I didn't want anybody running into trouble. Well, somebody else handled these cards. It turned out that was a brilliant thing to do, but
yeah,
I like having cards individually sleeved. I mean, in today's market, if you buy a whole bulk from me, all of a sudden, those sleeves may be worth almost as much as the cards in some cases.
Yeah.
By the way, I did notice a comment about Manalapan. I used to set up at the Manalapan Mall show there. And it was run by my late and very good friend. Now I got to remember his name. I know Mike was his first name, and he passed away about 2 years ago. Mike Kushner. And I still miss Mike to this day. Mike knew all the good Jewish delis anywhere you travel. You go to Mike, you're going to end up at a really good Jewish deli. And Mike ran the Manalapan shows, and those were fun. And, and it was interesting because the mall was kind of a dying mall, except for the weekend where he ran the shows. So whoever remembers the Manalapan Mall show, I'm glad. You probably saw me almost 40 years ago there. Actually, almost 35 years ago there. So it's good to see you again.
So, Bo, does it matter? Would you prefer to have a partner to help you out, or because you've got Rich. Rich, and then you've got you. Rich does his on his own, and you've got a partner. What's the dichotomy there of being able to have those differences? Sorry, I got to.
Oh, hit that cough button.
Oh yeah, I did.
So I really it's very helpful. And Rich, I know you've been kind of alone when you've run your shows, and there's a lot less stress when there's somebody involved. Any profits are cut in half, obviously. And the more people you get involved and pay, it takes from those profits. I'm doing this. I have more fun seeing the people enjoying their time. That's worth more than making a couple $100.
Right.
That's far more. When people say, this is my first show in 25 years, thanks for doing this show, this is a really nice space, that's worth more than any profit. And having the help is tremendous, because even though I'm kind of bouncing around and checking other tables out, talking to the other vendors, and just kind of doing that, taking video and pictures for social media, I don't have to leave my table for long periods of time to where somebody's standing around, they want to pay. That's annoying for me as a buyer. I want to pay so I can, time is limited. I want to go to the next table and look at their stuff. Yeah. So I don't like to leave my table for, more than a couple minutes at a time, just to make sure nobody's waiting. So to have somebody else, like, if I'm in the middle of something, I can wave Johnny down. We're at opposite ends of it's a large space. It's over 5,000 square feet, so it's a nice size room. And Johnny's on one side corner. I'm in the very back corner. So we can kind of oversee everything, and he can take care of that side. I can take care of my side. My mom volunteered the front desk, the food table. She's retired and was looking for something to do on a weekend, and hey, she's like, I'll do it for free.
Awesome.
Well, you gotta like mom doing it for free. In reality, I could run the show by myself because it was also fairly limited.
Sure.
It was 40 tables. It was a very confined space. Those shows actually, I knew most of the dealers were regulars. They knew the drill. It really wasn't that hard.
Sure, sure.
But the Adopt show with all the moving pieces, I had to get help running that show.
Absolutely.
There's no way I could run that show by myself. That show had so many moving parts, especially when we did the bags with the cards and the door prizes. And it's a walk from the front desk. You have to walk. It's a decent walk past the front table to the show floor. I mean, I probably could have set it up a little differently if I'd wanted less help. But it also became a camaraderie for the people in the brotherhood. Mm-hmm. So on that show, trust me, I had plenty of help running the show. I mean, as I like to say, I did 99% of the pre-show work and about 1% of the actual show work at that show. So let's understand that show, even though I was the host, I was really during the show the host of the show. I wasn't taking admissions. I would collect the dealer money, but since I was having my quarter boxes out at the show, it's not like I worried if somebody stole something from me. It's
Yep.
Right. So I was really more the host to all concerned. I wasn't the having to do everything. So in the hotel, I could do everything if I really wanted to, because it's really not that difficult. It is difficult, but not impossible. Yes, if I had somebody taking admission at the front desk, it'd be wonderful, but I can still handle that.
Sure.
And if I miss a person, okay, you miss $1 is not going to be a difference. Yeah. And there was an interesting comment about somebody saying you really need to charge admission. And you and I have talked about that. Yeah. There are reasons, and I'd like Bo to, Bo and I, we discussed some of those reasons. So I'd like you to discuss some of what I said, so it's not coming from my mouth, and then you can tell me what you've learned from that too.
Sure. And I think number one for me on the admission is you get pretty much a pretty close estimate on how many people were actually in the show. It gives you a really good gauge. Yeah, you're probably going to miss, especially in that like prime time, like right as the show opens, there's a lot of people coming in. We have like two entrances at the hotel, but the one set of doors is actually locked. But
there it is, the spinning wheel of death.
Okay, but what he's saying, at least the first point, is that if you're charging admission,
then you got a semi.
You have a pretty good idea how many people are coming through the door. Mm-hmm. And like, for example, even though I only charged $1, and I heard about my brother-in-law swore to me that I should charge $2, and you happen to know my brother-in-law, which is a different.
That's subject. Your brother-in-law.
And he always told me you should charge $2, and it's like, I wanted people, and since Bo is kind of stuck, frozen, I wanted people to feel they had some stake in the game, even though it's only $1. And I wanted Bo, call back if you can figure it out. And I also, and one of the key unknown reasons is if I charge admission, if I knew somebody did unsavory things with my hobby, I could just tell them they can't enter the show floor.
Yeah,
because if it's free, it becomes a public event, and I can't prevent you from coming in. Yeah. But there were 4 reasons, and so 1 is to have an idea of the count, 2 to defray the costs, and what was the third? And I started talking about how I could prevent somebody if I knew they were bad hobby people, and there was a third reason too that I charged admission. Do you remember what that was?
I don't. I remember those getting a count. That's something I mentioned before I froze. But the keeping people out that shouldn't be in, those were the two main takeaways I gathered from our conversation.
Well, yeah, and then you've got the gentleman that did run those off. I called them off shows. He did them the opposite of the Dallas card show. So you had a bigger Dallas card show and then a smaller show, and they kind of played off of each other. He used it for his mailing list. He used it for, I think he did it more to see how many people, because his show was getting a little full for the hotel that he was at. So it was more of pre-planning for the next show, is what I mean. It gives you an estimate. Plus, you can go back to, this goes back to a little bit of ROI. So sorry, guys. This goes back to, you can ROI for dealers and saying, hey, we have this many people attend our shows. So then you've got advertising, you've got sponsorships, you've got, I know I'm going into the business side of it a little bit, but you've got an ROI that you can prove to people and say, look, I've got this many people attending my shows. And then what that allows you to do is that maybe at some point in time, get an autograph, get an autograph person in there, get somebody in there that you can guarantee X, or not guarantee an X, but at least give, hey, I want to get Mel Renfro in, or Bob Lilly, or somebody like that to come in and do autographs, and you can judge. There was another show that was larger and that was held in Louisville that had 3 or 4 autograph gigs. I mean, right before the pandemic hit, I think there was a circuit of maybe 4 shows before Kyle's show really blew up. There was a circuit of 4 shows within the DFW Metroplex. And I just found it absolutely fascinating that the hobby was able to support in 2019 that many shows. Now with the shows exploding, you've got Philly going, you've got like 4 shows going on this weekend that I know of. And that's just larger shows, not even mentioning, in the next couple of weeks, you've got smaller shows popping up everywhere. I mean, it's going to be an exciting time in the hobby. Hopefully we don't fatigue ourselves out, but it's going to be an exciting time. So,
I think there was really a sign of the hobby exploding even before COVID hit. And I'd love to hear Rich's thoughts on this, but going back to 2019, the National in Chicago, I heard a lot of comments, and it was my first national, so it was a new experience for me, but I heard from a lot of veterans who had been to many nationals that 2019 show was one of the bigger attended, most well-attended nationals since the 90s.
Well, amazingly, 2018 in Cleveland was huge too. Mm-hmm. And, I know from where I am at ComC, though 2018 in Cleveland shattered any amount of cards we'd ever shipped back before.
Wow.
2019 shattered that. And wow. I remember we were, one of the funniest discussions, and he's not with the company anymore, is before he was trying to convince everybody not to bring any cards back, that we shouldn't take cards at the booth. And my point at the time was, no, you have to take cards at the booth. You have a subset of people at the show looking to send, since we're set up there, looking to take advantage of the fact they don't have to ship it to bring, and then what they're doing with the cards they're buying on the floor specifically to send to ComC. You're there, take the damn cards.
Yeah.
And we shipped, I believe, more than 60 boxes. And when I say boxes, huge moving boxes.
Oh, wow.
Of cards back to Redmond, Washington at that show. I mean, it was like the most ever before. And I don't know what they're thinking they're going to happen this year, but it's going to be absolutely, it may shatter that.
So but I'm curious because my day job is in shipping. So how did you send those back?
They're sent back. I mean, I know that, for example, let's say ComC does a show here. And we've had a couple shows here. You get, we'll call it a big shipping box. Mm-hmm. And you get all the orders and you put them into the box. And we go to, we actually, and I can say from where my office is. So, and the Dallas Card Show is literally across the street from my office. So let's say they were going to set up there. we would literally cross Central 75, go to FedEx office and ship it via FedEx, whatever the FedEx office way to do it, to ship it back to Redmond, Washington. And I don't know the details of what the agreement is on, or what they pay or anything. That's not only is it not my business, but I really don't care as long as it gets back there. But seriously, basically, it's pack the cards into a box, get the cards to FedEx office, get them to Redmond, Washington. I mean, that's the simplest way of saying it.
Yeah.
So that's the logistics way. Logistics dummies are us.
Yeah, I know that it was, and I'm going to ballpark it here because I can't remember what the exact number. I think it was 60,000 tickets were sold in 2019, which was a record. So I know that the 2019 National was a record. So if 2019 was 60, what is 2021 going to be?
It's going to be bigger.
Yeah.
And the only issue you have is because, and this is nobody's fault, because of the late announcement. In fact, when we were talking about lunch, one of my friends said his friend gave up his room at the Crown Royale or the Crown Plaza Hotel because he wasn't sure they were going to have a show.
Yeah,
I did too. I gave up mine.
So there are going to be some people, because it's more of a shorter time frame, they may not be able to arrange to get there. You know, you're fortunate. You can drive down. You can figure out a place to stay. You can figure all that out. You don't have to worry about plane tickets. You can know, even if it's 40 minutes away, where you can stay and be comfortable and all that. You understand the roads. You're in a better position, you know, than a lot of other people in getting there. There are other people.
And I waited. You know, I waited until that June 1st announcement before I purchased my tickets and booked my hotel. I was holding out. You know, I was just going to wait and see until an official announcement was made. So if I had to fly in, you know, I might have been one of those people that, you know, just said, scrap it. Because I don't want to fly. I'll try next year, but yeah, I'm 2 hours away. So I stayed at a hotel about 15 minutes just down River Road. So it's a nice little morning commute to the show each day. And it's a cheap hotel. It's nice, but it's cheap.
I hope it's not Motel 6.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got everything booked and excited to go.
Right. Well, you're fortunate. You don't have to arrange the plane ticket. You just, you'll drive.
Yep.
Yeah,
and, and then, if you really want, you can bring almost like a mini hand truck with you or something.
Yep.
Because one of the hidden things with that show is I'm sure it's more expensive than they used to be, but there's also a subset of people who don't park, at the garages by the hotel, but they park at the we'll call it the subway stop. That's not exactly the right term, but there's a train stop that you can walk to the convention center.
Yep.
I booked my hotel back in December and gave it up because of COVID. And I spent my money at the Dallas Card Show as opposed when Newman came into town, as opposed to because you had to make a call one way or the other. And I just said, I'm just gonna. Who knew? So I'm not gonna go this year. I'll go next year. So not that big a deal. We'll go to Atlantic City and. I yes, I will miss out on everybody being there, but at some point in time, had to make a call, and I did it. So yeah, I understand completely both sides of the picture. I'm a little disappointed. Yeah, I wish they'd made the call sooner, but they did what was best for them. So
and in their defense, they were very pragmatic.
Very.
They didn't want to rush into something and say, we're canceling, and they didn't want to rush into something and say we're going to open them and find out, oops, we have to cancel.
Yeah.
They waited until what they considered was an appropriate time to make the final decision. As it turned out, it was the correct decision. And you couldn't have made that decision in even March or April. So I'm going to defend John Brogy and the people running the National on that. Yep. Maybe you could have made it 2 weeks earlier or something, but for the most part, they made the decision. They announced when they were making the decision. There was no doubt that it looked very positive, and the signs continued to be positive.
Yeah.
So I want to say they did absolutely the right thing by their patience and waiting. Like, for example, there's going to be no Comic-Con this year. They probably could have had Comic-Con this year.
Yeah.
The Society of Baseball, and granted, the Society of American Baseball Research National Convention does tend to skew to older people. So I understand the issue with that. They canceled it in February or March. It's in July. I want to say you could probably have had it if you had waited a little longer and not canceled it. So certain people that canceled early may be ruining that decision. One thing to point out, and I don't want to sound like I'm giving free advertising. I happened to run into the person last night at the ballpark who's running the industry summit for Beckett.
Mm-hmm.
That they've announced for September. He happens to be let's call him the host and the organizer.
I wonder who that would be.
No, it's not me. I have nothing to do with that. But I actually ran into him. We were both walking the concourse at the same time, and he knew it was my birthday, so he took my photo, which was pretty interesting. And then I had him take a photo with me and my wife, and then we took a photo, but we were talking. I said, I'm excited for you, because I asked him how many people he was expecting, and they're expecting more people, I think, than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's in Vegas. And I saw the note about Vegas, and I think that's pretty exciting that they're expecting maybe more people than they've ever had before at the industry summit. I think that's we talk about great signs. Well, that is a great sign.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, the Philly show's held at a casino. What are your thoughts, Bo, on having something, and it's kind of a cross question. We have one of the world's largest casinos less than 45 minutes from my house and right across the border of Oklahoma. What are anybody's thoughts in having a card show at a casino? I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand, doesn't it? You gamble with packs, you gamble with at the card table and at the slot machines.
I would caution against it, because it's going to take away. You don't want to have a 3-day card show in a casino, and after the show ends on Friday night, say you're running it Friday, Saturday, Sunday. When the show ends on Friday night, somebody sells the big PSA 9 Mickey Mantle, and then go to the casino and, hey, let's buy a few rounds and let's go to the craps table, and all of a sudden they're down money and they don't have any money to spend on Saturday, Sunday. That's kind of where I would be like, yeah, because you kind of want people to focus on the cards. That's just my opinion. I wouldn't want a distraction, especially a casino where people can get some alcoholic drinks in them and make some poor choices in front of a slot machine or craps table. It wouldn't affect me, because I'm not a casino guy. I'll drop $20 and that's it. And I can walk away and, just kind of watch everybody else. But I know some people don't really have that, that stop button, stop sign. So I would err against it, just for the fact that it could be a financial distraction that could take away from card money for people.
Well, I'm more of
the view that it's really, Vegas at one time they tried to make it more of a family-friendly town, and they realized that wasn't, and I agree with Herman on that, it wasn't a wise decision to try to make it a family-friendly town.
Yeah.
Hey, you're getting adults. They're there to gamble. They're there to see the shows. They're there to, let's just say, get married. They're there to go to places you probably don't go to in your hometown. We'll leave it at that. And it's not family friendly in a large extent. And one of the things about sports card collecting is that it's designed to be, for the most part, family friendly.
Well, as long as you stay off the casino floor, it doesn't matter.
But you're in the casino buildings, unless the convention center, which is big enough, is not actually in a casino. You're going to be in a casino. It's a pretty easy walk into the casino.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Choctaw, because to go into most people don't know the logistics. So let me give you the logistics. When you go into Choctaw, you go upstairs, and there's a great big huge room that they use for sporting events. So you never really have to touch the casino floor to get to that particular area. Yes, if you go to WinStar, which is another place, yes, you have to actually touch the casino floor. But as long as you stay along a certain pathway, they don't mind the age of whoever. So I see both sides, and I just thought it was a decent dynamic question to ask for another, weave, because a lot of people say, go to Vegas for the national. Well, Bo, your point is, do you really want to distract people from buying and selling by putting the national in Vegas? That's a great point. It's an absolutely great point. I will actually change my train of thought, because I thought the casino, I thought it would be a great idea. And I 100% agree with you. You've changed my mind, Bo. You've changed my mind.
I didn't intend to change your mind, but Theodore mentioned Atlantic City has the national, and I've never been to Atlantic City. I've heard a lot of people, kind of frown on the whole scene, the Atlantic City National. Atlantic City isn't Vegas. I mean, there's a lot more distractions in Vegas than there would be in Atlantic City, than there is in Atlantic City. And, I mean, Atlantic City, it seemed they keep going back, so it must be working. So it's just my opinion.
Atlantic City is the convention center is not part of a casino.
Yeah. Okay. And see, and that's another thing that Herman brought up is, most casinos, I think all casinos, you have to be 21 to enter, or at least maybe 18 or 21 to enter. And, that's not conducive to, bringing kids into the hobby.
Yeah. And Rex makes a great point with the card show right before the industry summit in Vegas this year. So I'm interested to, and he may or may not, I may have to gently coax a certain gentleman to come on after the industry summit to have him have a conversation of that dynamic afterwards. But I would really like to know that dynamic of the industry summit. But the industry summit is more of a convention and an industry show for presenting products and whatnot and information than it really is a card show. The card show is just an offset of. And
I actually went to a Vegas show back in the night. I've actually gone to a couple of Vegas card shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there was it wasn't huge. There was nothing really special. It really, it wasn't like it was hundreds of tables. So it wasn't like it was so big that it was just one of your average 50, 60 table card shows in those days.
Yeah.
So it was a little different than what we're talking about today with doing a national. A 50 table card show, fine, do it in Vegas.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And that's kind of where it's kind of gone. We've kind of gone off track to my original thought. My thought is I would not be a fan of having a card show inside a casino, inside an actual casino in Choctaw, Oklahoma. Vegas card shows, yeah, sure. But my initial train of thought is not having a card show inside an actual casino. So sorry, Rich.
No, well, that was my point. That's what I said. That's why I said Atlantic City is not in a casino. Yeah. The Atlantic City Convention Center is a separate building.
Yeah.
So it's not in a casino. You have to drive 15 minutes or walk, and you don't really want to walk that far in Atlantic City at night. But you just can't go next door to a casino from the convention center, even in Atlantic City. You have to make an effort to get there. But if you're in a convention center in Vegas and there's a casino there, it is a different issue. And that's where I do agree with you. And as I said, the other issue with Vegas, it's not really a family-friendly city. I know there are families that live there, and I get that, but it's not a place where you usually bring your kids. Brad, you've gone to Vegas. I've seen your Vegas posts.
Yes.
Do you bring your kids?
No, I would not bring.
My point, and I guarantee you, the National's going to think the same way. But in the 80s, there were my old friend Joel Hellman actually, I'll use the word competed, but in those days, there were various local promoters who competed to run the shows, and he made bids for Atlantic City. So the hobby in those days, even in the 80s, just said, no, we're not having a show in Atlantic City. No, we're not having a show in Vegas.
Yeah.
Even in the 80s, there was no show. I mean, even in the 80s, there was no national in Vegas. And I mean, it's been brought up, but it's. I think the issue is you want to have, if you're a vendor and you have the kids, what do you do with the kids? I mean,
Right.
that's really the final answer.
Yeah.
Right.
And when all is said and done, that's the answer. And I mean, hey, I guarantee you'd have a heck of a good show in Vegas, and a lot of people would bring a lot of money, and it would be a lot of fun. Yeah, some of them would lose it at the tables. It would be a lot of fun, but it's not where you can't really, one of the great things, and I'm sure they're going to do this to some extent in Chicago again this year, is somebody will sponsor, hopefully again, the kids being free.
Yes. Yes. Please. Please.
Where there's a way to bring your family in. There's a family rate. So that's been sponsored the last few nationals. It's more family friendly, and I hate that term, but it's actually more family friendly to not be in Vegas. And I understand that Vegas is again trying to do things, and I know they had a rough year, so they better be doing things. But I think for us, our perception is not to be in Vegas. Maybe 5 years from now, we can look at this again and say, Vegas has really gotten back to being a family-friendly town. You can bring your kids. There's plenty for them to do. Come to the show. So we may, in a few years, be able to change that.
I just want it back in Dallas. That's all. I just want it back in Dallas. I want the national.
We don't have seriously. I mean, the only place big enough is the K. Bailey Hutchinson Dallas Convention Center.
Exactly.
And then, I mean, right now you still have to deal with Dallas, the Dallas County rules before you use any facility there. That's why Kyle hasn't gone there, is that he's looked into it.
Yeah. I mean, it's my own selfish reasons. I don't want to fly.
Well, I get that totally. Right now, I don't know if I want to, part of me may not want to fly either. Traveling is a lot more stressful for, even though I'm fully vaccinated, it's still more stressful.
It is.
I get that, in a car, I control what I'm doing. I can't control the same in the air. And I'm not talking about, bad things happening on the plane. I'm just talking about the whole rigmarole of what you have to go through to get on a plane versus the rigmarole of just getting into my car and driving. I stopped at Einstein Bagels this morning. And I could actually eat an Einstein's Bagels if I so desire.
Okay, so there's a joke between Herman and I. Herman doesn't like to fly, okay? And there's a side, like, I'm constantly aggravating Herman about flying to Dallas to go to the Dallas card show. And so this is the whole, like, what's that, Brad? So Herman's getting back at me for it's packing cards, it's putting it into luggage, it's shipping, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to take? Just getting on a flight alone, going through TSA, but then trying to figure that logistics out. And those, I can understand why people are hesitant to do that, because do you ship your cards via FedEx to the hotel? Yeah, you can do that, and then you ship it back, but there's added costs involved. Do you ship it to the convention center? Yes, but can you ship it? Then there's this whole logistics. They don't like setting up for shows. There's a whole ton of back end logistics, and if you're doing it in a non-unionized versus a unionized location, that becomes an entirely different nightmare, because then you can't touch your box. You can't do it. It's just so no. I just plus it'd be kind of cool. I mean, it was in Dallas. It was in Arlington in the 80s.
86 and 90.
And I went to 86. I didn't go to 90, but I went to 86 with my family. And I think I'm going to do it. Hashtag bring the National to Dallas. I know it'll never happen, but I can always dream.
Well, it could happen, but and maybe we can. I mean, Kyle Show is almost like a mini regional national.
I know.
I think that's happening quite a bit, where a lot of the country, they're almost becoming mini nationals in themselves.
Well, we have Leaf represented. I can't wait for Tracy Hackler to set up at a Panini booth, and I don't understand why the larger companies won't set up at the Dallas show. And maybe it's maybe Kyle just doesn't want him there. I mean, that could possibly be it. But I just think that there's an opportunity for this part of the country, whether it's in somewhere in Georgia, Dallas, not Oklahoma, but Georgia. I keep South Carolina, somewhere in the South. There needs to be like a flagpole, and maybe it has become Dallas, but I don't know. I'm rambling. Sorry, guys.
Well, that's okay. I ramble too. That's why my column for Sports Collectors Daily back in the day was Rich's Ramblings. So I love ramblings. Herman, you're not driving that many thousand miles. It's a lot closer to come to Dallas. I'm sure you really want to see Brad. So, okay, we are in overtime. We are rambling. I think we could probably start our closing thought. Thank you for coming on, Bo. You helped salvage what was going to be a two-person discussion. So we appreciate you coming on.
Yes, we really appreciate you coming on.
All right, have a good day, guys.
No, stay on. Stay on. We want you to be on for the closing.
Okay.
Give us your final thoughts, Bo, on the hobby, for the state of the hobby that we're at right now. Give us a final encouraging.
I think
thought.
I'm frozen.
You're not frozen. Oh, you are frozen again.
You are frozen. Yes, his internet. Okay, well, Rich, it's you go first this time then.
Okay. Well, we're waiting for Bo to unfreeze for the second time. It's been a wonderful birthday weekend. I'll probably stop at a card. Hey, there he's back.
He's back.
And I'll probably stop at a couple of card stores and treat myself since I have a little extra money since all bills are paid going into this, and I got paid yesterday, so I have a little extra money. Unfortunately, my wife informed me that I have to pay for my own birthday dinner. But that's a different subject. And I get to enjoy the hobby. I'll stop at the Walmart I like to stop at, see if there's anything there. And then I'll stop at the card stores. I have a couple other places I need to shop today. But, I'll be immersed in the hobby. I had a hobby lunch yesterday. As I told you, I will get you the information for the next one. And you're welcome to come to any of them. They're usually on a Friday around lunchtime. And just talking about the hobby is fun. Mm-hmm. And being in the hobby is fun. And, and I don't think we talk about that often enough. We're talking about running shows. And I bet you that most of the people who attended my show enjoyed coming. Mm-hmm. And I always tried to make, one of the other things I saw as being a host, I would ask them, how'd you find out about us? I'd also say, what'd you pick up? And it was also to get a gauge of what they were looking for. So I think there's some huge differences. Yes, there's some huge differences in the past year, but when it all comes down to it, you do you, boo, okay?
Yes. Oh, that's going to end up a meme. I hate doing that.
Bo, you're up.
So, yeah, I went back to the office 2 weeks ago, and I was dreading going back to the office because I knew I was gonna lose some hobby focus. But steak is really good, and we all say that, yeah, I could eat steak for dinner. I could grill a steak every night of the week. But in reality, if you eat steak day after day, it's not as good when you have it, every once in a while, special occasions. And that's kind of where I was at with the hobby. Even though up until 2 weeks ago, I was having a blast, hanging out in my card room, not being able to go anywhere. It's kind of nice to have that break. And when I get off work, I can come home to my wife and then the cards, make sure I get that straight.
Yeah, that order is important.
And, and so a little time away is good. And, I think it's kind of sparked. So it's rejuvenated my love for the hobby, even though the love didn't go away. It's nice to get out. Chicago's Wrigley Field, the Cubs hosted 100% capacity with no mask restrictions yesterday. So just seeing the pictures, and I had a lot of friends that were there, just seeing those pictures and video was, really, hey, we are, pretty close to reality from pre-COVID. The card shows and being out talking, John Newman says hobby is the people, and that's so right. Being able to not talk on the internet to people, but being able to go to card shows again and seeing faces, what's behind the mask now. So it's, even though I'm not spending as much time on social media and with my cards, I think the love is maybe a little bit more, just a little more energy to it. Because
is it because now that you have to now when you do hobby and you do you-boo with the hobby, that you have to focus more and really focus on what you like. One thing I do, remember, I work in the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in office by myself. And I've written about this. And there's a person, his name is Rob Frankel. And he actually posts old radio air checks every day on Mixcloud, and I subscribe, and it's like the old joke. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you do know based on what he promises, and sometimes you don't know, Yesterday, and I was off yesterday, so I want to stress that. So, but in between all that, but he posted a radio station I grew up listening to it was only on for a few years, and on Memorial Day weekend, I have to catch up for various reasons. I'm like several weeks behind on his posts. He posted the top 100 that this radio station created of 1968, and it was a 6-hour program. And it literally, and after with the break for lunch and all of that, it literally took me the entire day I was at the office to listen. But I don't do a lot of, people would say I don't do a lot of hobby when I'm at the office. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm looking at cards, I'll listen to Dr. Jim's podcast before I go off to work in the morning. They're 15 minutes. It's wonderful. It's a short enough burst I can live with that. And I'll listen because, I work with him at ComC. I'll listen to about the cards because I want to hear what Stefan has to say. And I really want to listen to what Ben has to say because Ben is unique. But and then I'll listen occasionally to John's podcast, or I'll listen to Jeremy's Jeremy's webcast. I'll listen to some of the others. I can't listen to everything, so I try to be very focused on what I do, hobby related. I try to focus more on listening to music type stuff, so I don't burn out. So I'm actually more focused on what, if I wasn't on Hobby Hotline, I usually on Saturdays do come home and listen to Hobby Hotline, and it's on his background. But I want to stress that I think you're right, Bo. I think if you focus and you do you-boo, that you can enjoy the hobby even more than that you thought you did when you were basically able to spend those 2 extra hours a day.
Yeah.
When you were commuting to work, digging into the hobby. I think it was great, but now I think it's time that we go back to being less focused 24/7 and maybe focused 3-4 hours a day and really enjoy the more limited time we spend on the hobby as we got back to normal. In fact, it's funny, one of the members of our synagogue, I don't know what it is, but somebody was getting married up in Chicago on Sunday. She's a Cardinals fan. Do you know who the Cubs were playing yesterday?
The Cardinals.
Right. They got some rooftop reservations yesterday to watch the game from a overseeing rooftop at Wrigley Field. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny you mentioned that because I tell you, she was there at the game. She's a Cardinals fan. She knows more about baseball than I do at this point. But it's great that, yes, it was like being normal. And, we go to services. It's like being normal again.
Yeah.
As I said, I went to Einstein's. They had seats out. And I couldn't stay this morning because I was running late and I wanted, as I said, I had my Torah study this morning. But they had seats available. If I had gone there earlier, I could have sat and read one of my newspapers I need to catch up on, reading that and sitting down and feeling like a person reading and eating inside a place instead of having to take it back to my office or take it home. It's nice to feel like a person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have such an interesting dynamic because, this is my job. I've chosen to make this my job. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and breaks are important. Breaks are important. I do take afternoons off, and I do take Saturday, this afternoon, no hobby, no whatsoever. I'll fill orders because, I've got to fill orders, and I promised Zach that I would get him his cards out to him, and I'll go to the post office, but the rest of the time is spent with a wife. So that's extremely important to have that break, to have that shutdown. Um, I will say that just just because just because there is everything doesn't mean you have to do everything. Just because there's Panini, NFL, NFTs, blockchain coming out doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. And just because that there's Series 2 baseball coming out doesn't mean that you have to do Series 2 baseball. You take your hobby and do it the way that you want to enjoy, and don't let anybody influence how you do it. And if you're an investor, be an investor. If you're a collector, be a collector. If you're a dealer, be a dealer. The only other thing that I say, and this is, please don't trash each other. There's enough hate in this world. There's enough of that stuff going on. Don't don't trash. Don't I ask that sincerely of us in the hobby, and as us as people. There's enough hate in the world without us doing any more. This is supposed to be a hobby. This is supposed to be fun. And the moment it becomes not fun, I go back to making a six-figure salary and saying I'm going to go back into sales, and that's not going to happen because I have fun. I do this for fun. This is a hobby. It's supposed to be fun. And I say you do you, boo. To say, just do yourself. Don't hate. And that's my rant, and I'll let it at that. So, thank you very much for spending your Saturday morning with us. Thank you very, very much for spending time. Both, thank you very much for joining us. I know that you have. Thank you, Rex, for having us on at the shop. I know everybody has a choice in what they're doing on Saturday mornings. Thank you very, very much for being with us. We greatly appreciate it. And with that,
thank you all for the comments too. It really helped us because this was a slightly lighter news week, so we really appreciated.
Yes, thank you. And on that, y'all do you, and we're out. And thank you. God bless.